Good Wednesday evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Neuse News weekly sports show. Of course, my name is Graham Hill. Joining me, as always,
Parker Mitchell.
And we want to thank everybody for joining in with us as we got plenty to talk about, including the games that took place this past Friday night, and then the big games that are part of Rivalry Week that will be taking place this Friday, and then, of course, a very special Saturday night game, which will be the state championship game between Grace Christian and Raleigh versus the Parrott Academy Patriots. That will be our Neuse News Game of the Week. That is going to be presented by Nathan Perry Realty. And while we're talking about sponsors, we want to go ahead and thank our sponsors for our Neuse News weekly sports show. First, Lenoir Community College. LCC Quick Jobs program provides training so you get to work in less than 6 months. And because LCC partners with area employers, you can find not only a job, but a new lifelong career. Jobs currently in demand include heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, electrical wiring, as well as energy distribution systems, manufacturing, truck driver training, and welding. Tuition assistance may be available, as well as nationally recognized credentials. It's a new you and a new you. Let LCC empower you to get the job and career you've always hoped for. To learn about quick jobs, call 252-527-6223, extension 714, or enroll at lenoircc.edu/quickjobs.
The Neuse News Sports Show is also sponsored by KC Crop Insurance. They're here to serve all your crop insurance needs. With over 50 years of combined experience, they take pride in excellence and customer service. Give KC Crop Insurance service team a call at 252-522-9613. That's 252-522-9613. And tell them Neuse News sent you.
Of course, if you have not subscribed to the Neuse newsletter, then you are missing out. It's free. It's in your inbox at 7 a.m. every morning, and it's full of today's headlines. Go to neusenews.com to subscribe. Again, that is the free Neuse newsletter, and this is our Neuse News weekly sports show. Thank you once again for joining us. And Parker, the roles are a little switch. I mean, you're looking very dashing today, and I'm kind of just looking.
Still looking good at repping NC State.
Even though we lost last night, it's never a close game. Kids battled hard, 82-81 season opening loss at home. But it's tough being a State fan. Let's just be honest.
Football and basketball.
Nonetheless, it's been tough for a couple of teams with their games this past Friday. Let's take a look at last week's scores. Of course, we have the score from the NCISAA Division II 8-man state championship game where Halifax Academy defeated Bethel Christian Academy by a final score of 38-8. And then West Craven pulled a major upset. They defeated Washington by a final score of 20-14. Parker, I called it last week in my predictions. I like to see a little chaos happen in the Eastern Carolina Conference standings, and that's just what I got in that game. Again, the West Craven Eagles defeating the Washington Pampat by a score of 20-14. And then the Ayden-Grifton Chargers defeated the Green Central Rams by a final score of 21-0. Kinston High defeated their crosstown rivals, the North Little Hawks, 19-6. And then Parrott Academy defeated Faith Christian, the NCISAA 2A 8-man state playoff semifinal. And now Parrott Academy will be going back there again this Saturday night to see them take on Grace Christian of Raleigh in the 8-man state championship game.
I was about to say, yeah, we actually covered the Faith Christian game, and we'll be covering the Grace Christian game Grace Christian Raleigh, should I say, game this coming up Saturday.
And just talking about given those scores I just said, what are some of the scores that kind of stand out to you? I know we kind of did the same thing last week, but we saw a little bit of early rivalry matches between Kinston High and North Lenoir, and then you had the very exciting Washington West Craven game, and then you had our state playoff game, or not our state playoff game, but was our Neuse News game of the week that we'll be talking about more later on in the show, along with the state championship game.
I guess the most surprising outcome had to be the Washington game. I thought Washington really had it in the bag this year with how they've been playing so far in conference. But again, with the conference we're in, or the conference we cover, there's, you never really know what to predict.
It's always tough.
Exactly. I mean, you have Washington losing to West Craven, but Washington beat North Lenoir, but West Craven lost to North Lenoir. Just a bunch of different kind of bouncing around, and you can't. It's hard to predict what will happen in our conference this year.
A lot of mixing up did take place this past Friday in the Eastern Carolina Conference, and let's take a look at the ECC standings currently, thanks to Max Prep. At number 1 now, we have the West Craven Eagles. They have an overall record of 7-3 for the season, 5-1 in the Eastern Carolina Conference, and then right behind them in second place, you have the Washington Pampat. They now have an overall record of 7-3 as well, a 4-1 record in the ECC, and now in third place, you have the Kinston High Vikings with an overall record of 6-4. 3-2 in the ECC. The Ayden-Grifton Chargers sit at fourth place with an overall record of 7-2, 3-2 in conference play. North Lenoir has now moved down to fifth place. They have an overall record of 7-3, 2-3 in the ECC. And then in sixth place, you have the Green Central Rams, who have an overall record of 4-6, 2-4 in the ECC. And then at seventh place, the last place in the standings, you have the South North Blue Devils with a 2-7 overall record for the season, 0-5 in conference play. They had a bye week this past week as they prepare to take on their rivals, North Lenoir, this upcoming Friday night.
Yeah, and like you said, whenever we're talking about like exciting upcoming games, normally I'm going for the rivalry game, South Lenoir, North Lenoir, but I'm really excited about the I'm lost in my notes. Oh, the Parrott Academy
Absolutely, yeah.
Game.
The Parrott Academy Grace Christian game, that's going to be our Neuse News Game of the week, as we mentioned. That's going to be Neuse News' first ever live stream broadcast of a state championship game, which is pretty monumental for us.
Exactly, and again, we've pointed out all of the key factors for Parrott from the last game, and I'm excited to see what they'll go out there and do now, not only the seniors, but just the rest of the team, and see what they're going to be able to put on the table for this championship game. Actually, after losing senior Trey McGlawhorn to an ACL injury from this past game.
And we're definitely going to talk about that game more coming up in the broadcast. But let's take a look back once again at the games that took place this past Friday and give you a quick recap of what happened. First, the Washington versus West Craven game. We want to thank Tommy Maddox's Twitter for giving us information on this. This was West Craven's final Eastern Carolina Conference game of the season since they finished out their regular season this Friday night against their rival in the 4A division, New Bern High School. But it was scoreless at the end of the first quarter, 0-0 apiece. West Craven built up a nice 13-0 lead heading into halftime. And then at the end of the third quarter, West Craven led by a score of 20-0. So West Craven was pretty dominant all throughout the first half and in the third quarter. But then Washington scored two quick touchdowns to make it 20-14 with 8 minutes left to go in the game. And then later on in the game, Washington, after their last touchdown, recovered an onside kick, converted a couple of fourth downs, so they had some momentum going for them to try to make it an interesting game, try and tie it up with West Craven. And they made it all the way down to the 1-yard line, but they were stopped on 4th and goal.
Wow, I actually didn't know that. But again, it's pretty interesting to see West Craven. This is their third year in the conference. The first 2 years they were 7-6, and now they're 7-3. So they've already reached that win mark that they were probably had a goal to reach this season. And now they're looking to expand on that. They're first now in conference too. So I'm excited to see how they'll finish off the season going up against the out of conference rivals, New Bern.
Well, things still can be interesting for Washington and West Craven. They're now sitting at first and second in the Eastern Carolina Conference standing. A Washington win this Friday will make them co-Eastern Carolina Conference champions. But West Craven, because of this win this past Friday night, has clinched the number 1 seed out of the Eastern Carolina Conference heading into the state playoffs. And as we mentioned, West Craven will get ready to set their sights on their rivals in the 4A division. New Bern High School is going to be coming to that game with an overall record of 9-1. Let's talk about Bethel Christian Academy versus Halifax Academy. This was the NCI SAA Division II 8-man state championship game. The Halifax Vikings, this was their 4th straight state championship game appearance. And we talked about it a lot last when we were previewing this game. Halifax was coming to this game off a lot of momentum. They had about 4 games where they had outscored their opponents by 20 or plus points. I believe it was 2 other games that they had outscored their opponents by 30 plus. But they were coming into this game with a lot of momentum, and they're a great football organization for this to be their 4th straight title appearance.
And in Bethel's defense, Bethel was able to hold them scoreless up until late in the first half, where they got a touchdown, then immediately were able to get another one right going into the half, and I think that's kind of what opened up the floodgates, as Halifax was also able to score 16 more points starting out in the third quarter, and then they got one late touchdown there in the game. But Bethel did too. But again, it was just Bethel was holding its own up until later. It just seemed they got tired throughout the game, and that's when it was falling apart for them.
Well, Bethel Christian's opening drive of the game, it started off, they had 4 penalties called against them. That kind of stopped their momentum right from the beginning. As you mentioned, Halifax was able to kind of take control and score some late touchdowns early in the first half to give them a 16-0 lead head into halftime. But Eli Harris of the Vikings, the senior running back, came into this game with a total of over 2,000 yards rushing, which is absolutely incredible, and added to 189 yards for a total of 27 carries and 3 touchdowns for the night to help give his Vikings team a win. Bethel's only touchdown came from senior fullback off a 10-yard touchdown right at the end of the game, and senior running back Tyler Eubanks added a 2-point conversion to give Bethel 8 points. And then, Bethel, Britt Crowder talked about, despite the challenges and the difficulties they had throughout the season, they were able to come together as a team and make it to the state championship game, which there were a lot of difficulties. You had the incident with the fight that gave that team some suspension. So Britt Crowder's right. Bethel did a great job of turning things around and being able to make it into the state championship game.
I was about to say, based off those suspensions, which I heard about, once they were able to get those students back, you could tell there's really a different drive for that Bethel team late in the season.
Well, of course, Rodney Warren, Tyler Eubanks, Connor Williams, Jamiah Washington, Quan Hamilton, and Lucas Azell are the 6 seniors that were part of this Bethel Christian Academy team. And head coach Britt Crowder also mentions those are going to be tough seniors to replace in the upcoming years.
Oh, for sure.
Let's now talk about the first edition of Rivalry Week here in Lenoir County in the Kinston area. It was North Lenoir versus Kinston High. Now, Josh Holloway returned the opening kickoff for a 90 yards to put Kinston High on top 6-0 early over the North Lenoir Hawks. The Jimmy Smith Cup will remain with Kinston High for the 3rd straight seasons. They were able to pick up a 19-6 win. Caleb Gooden, the backup quarterback who's taken over for Dimitri Holmes, who's out for the rest of the season, he was phenomenal in this game. He had a pair of 4th-quarter touchdowns to help contribute to the Vikings' victory. For 3 quarters, the Hawks won the line of scrimmage, even though the score was deadlocked at 6-6 apiece.
Yeah, reading up on this game, Caleb Gooding actually, out of the 19 snaps that 4th quarter, he either carried or passed the ball on 15 of those plays. And I thought that was really impressive coming from a backup quarterback, which the coach just kind of threw it in his hands. Jim Collins talked about after the game, his defense just seemed real tired afterwards. And I guess with those 2 touchdowns, you kind of tell which they were able to just keep the defense out on the field and keep them worn out.
Well, the Kinston Vikings did put the game into the hands of their quarterback. Like we said, he was absolutely phenomenal in that game. He completed an 11-yard pass to Iverson Ward on the first play of the 4th quarter, and then Kinston High did not throw a single pass attempt for the rest of the game. They went right to the running play, and a lot of that was contributed by Caleb Gooden. Gooden won the ball with his feet in the 4th quarter. He ran the ball for 14 times, I should say, for 92 yards, including 7 consecutive carries as the Vikings had a 54-yard drive to grab a 13-6 lead off a Gooden 4-yard touchdown with 9:33 left in the game. After forcing a North Lenoir punt on the next drive, Kinston got the ball back with 5:39 left in the game and used all but the final 22 seconds to drive 64 yards in 11 plays and put the game away off a 6-yard quarterback keeper on a 4th-and-1 situation. And one thing that's frustrating for Jim Collins, and when you look at this, the Hawks outgained Kinston High by a total of 228 to 79 yards over the first 24 minutes of the first half, but only had 6 points to show for it.
Exactly, and whenever you run the ball, like we've talked about it in the games that we've covered, you just have, whenever you can run the ball, you're wearing that clock down, you're wearing the defense down, and it's just those factors started to add up, and you can tell late in the game with those 2 touchdowns in the 4th quarter from Caleb Gooding.
Of course, you had the Ayden-Grifton Chargers taking on the Green Central Rams in Snow Hill. Parker, tell us a little bit about that game.
All right, well, this is the result was 21-0. Ayden-Grifton won. This is the 3rd game in a row that Green Central has lost, and all 3 of those games have been blowouts, unfortunately. But one of the important things that came out of that game was senior wide receiver Keyshawn Best. I hope I'm not butchering that name, Keyshawn Best. But he actually started off the game in the first quarter with a 67-yard touchdown, almost intercepted by Green Central, but somehow recovered it. It was in the air long enough, and he was able to run it in. I mean, that's a pretty cool moment for a senior wide receiver right there. But besides that, it just seemed like a really just kind of one-sided affair up until around the third quarter. There were 2 touchdowns scored. Just kind of it favored Ayden-Grifton, which Ayden-Grifton's been on this run after beating North Lenoir last week. They've just been on that roll ever since losing those, or ever since conference started, might I say.
The final game we want to recap was our Neuse News Game of the week this past week, Faith Christian versus Parrott Academy. This was the semifinals of the NCISAA 2A state playoffs. The top-seeded Patriots are now advancing to the state championship for the 5th time in the last 6 years. Trey McLaughlin was a standout player for Parrott Academy. He had another excellent game. He had a total of 367 off 31 carries for the Patriots offense. Unfortunately, he fell to the ground after a first down gain inside Faith Christian territory late in the fourth quarter and did suffer what we now know from Matt Beeman, an ACL injury, which is just very unfortunate for Trey McLaughlin. And Trey, for watching this, we want to send our best wishes in regards to you and your family and just are hoping for a speedy recovery.
Yeah, again, and we actually pointed that play out. You could see his knee buckle, and you didn't want to – he left the game right after that, and we didn't want to think the worst right then, but eventually, like you said, he is out for the season now with the ACL injury.
Well, what was so special about this game, we saw a combo of 3 of the state's top running backs for 8-man football. Of course, you had Trey McLaughlin, then Faith's combo of Herbert Brantley and Shaquille Hardy. The trio combined for nearly 900 yards rushing and 13 touchdowns. McLaughlin had the longest run of the night, an 83-yard run during Parrott's 27-point second-quarter outburst that helped erase a 22-6 deficit. Parrott had a 47-36 lead going into halftime, but Faith Christian did climb back within 53-52 late in the third. Parrott finally got the defensive support that they needed all night long, and it needed to happen soon enough, forcing 2 fumbles and turned both into touchdowns that stopped any further comeback, I should say, from happening by the 2018 state champs. Overall, Parrott converted 4 Faith Christian turnovers into 26 points and avenged last year's opening round playoff defeat to earn another chance at a state title game this Saturday night. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about right now. The state championship game between Grace Christian Raleigh taking on Parrott Academy. What's going to be some key factors going into Parrott for this game?
Well, I've mentioned this before. You got Brenton Kirby for Grace Christian. He's had a 70% completion percentage all year, 21 passing touchdowns and 1,300 yards on the season. He looks like a really good Grace Christian. After looking at their offense, they've got a very versatile offense. You got someone very strong at QB, but you also have a very good dominant senior running back, Isaiah Anderson, who's got 13 rushing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns, and 13 receiving touchdowns on the season. Now, that's really impressive, and that's one of the biggest things that stuck out to me, just how versatile their offense has been so far this season. Something kind of different from Faith Christian. It's going to be interesting to see what Parrott will do to adjust and see what exactly will happen this Saturday night.
And this is definitely not going to be no easy task for Parrott Academy. This is going to be another gritty game. And, of course, with the injury bug that has struck Parrott Academy, you have Trey McLaughlin out. You have Reynolds Behringer, of course, who's been out for a while because of another ACL injury he suffered earlier in the season. And then you had Colby Lewis, who's an a defensive lineman, I should say, who also went out in that Faith Christian game. He has an injury of a blown knee, and that was an injury that we recognized was very severe right off the bat, and actually the ambulance had to come out onto the field. And, same thing with Trey McLaughlin. We're hoping the best for Colby Lewis. So Matt Beeman knows that this is going to be a hard-fought victory, but I'm sure Parrott Academy can rise to the challenge and come up with a win to get another state championship into their program.
But again, you can't forget that freshman quarterback I hope I'm pronouncing that.
Wilkes Thomas, you're right.
Had 4 total touchdowns this past game against Faith Christian, and again, just for him to be a freshman and step up the way he has, that's really impressive from what I've seen.
This state championship game is going to be taking place this Saturday night, not Friday night, but it's going to be taking place this Saturday night at 7 o'clock. This is presented by Nathan Perry Realty, and it is going to be a live stream on our Facebook page. It's going to be our Neuse News Game of the week. And Parker, I'm very excited for it.
Oh, I am too. how can you not be excited for a game like that?
Well, while we have a moment, I'm so excited I can't get my words figured out. Let's thank our sponsors once again. We want to thank LCC, whose quick job programs can provide training so you can get a job in less than 6 months. And because LCC partners with area employers, you can find not only a job, but a new lifelong career. It's a new you and a new you. Let LCC empower you to get the job and career you always hope for. To learn more about quick jobs, call 252-527-6223, extension 714, or enroll at lenoircc.edu/quickjobs.
The Neuse News Game, or not Game of the Week, we're not on to that yet. The Neuse News Sports Show is also sponsored by KC Crop Insurance. They're here to serve all your crop insurance needs. With over 50 years of combined experience, they take pride in excellent customer service. Give KC Crop Insurance a call at 252-522-9613. That's 252-522-9613, and tell them Neuse News sent you.
And, of course, you have the Neuse Newsletter. If you have not subscribed to the free Neuse Newsletter, you are missing out. It's in your inbox at 7 a.m. every morning. It's full of today's headlines. To subscribe to the Neuse Newsletter, all you have to do is simply go to neusenews.com. Now let's get into the part that we always love to do. We have the predictions for the upcoming game this Friday night and Saturday night. That's going to be our Neuse News Game of the week. First, let's talk about a game of two teams that are not in our coverage area, but it's certainly going to be a big game. You have New Bern High School taking on West Craven. New Bern does come into this game with an overall record of 9-1, 5-1 in the Eastern Carolina 4A Conference. West Craven comes to this game with an overall record of 7-3, 5-1 in the ECC. This is West Craven's senior night, and as we mentioned earlier, West Craven has clinched the number 1 seed for the conference heading into the state playoffs. Parker, what do you have?
Well, looking back on some of what New Bern, they've done so far this season. They got one loss against D.H. Conley, which was at D.H. Conley for their homecoming or senior night. I can't remember. Don't quote me on that. But, West Craven coming off that Washington win, it's really interesting to see what they'll do here. This is like a out-of-conference rivalry game, as West Craven used to be in New Bern's conference. But, again, West Craven being number 1, they're going to want to keep up that winning record and try and beat, that 7-6 record they've stuck with, their first 2 seasons, and now maybe get to 8 wins on the season.
Don't get me wrong. I've been very impressed by West Craven all season long. I mean, they have an excellent quarterback. I love their head coach. I really like their program, but 4A play is just, sort of different. Mm-hmm. Of course, you have teams in that conference like New Bern High School, D.H. Conley, J.H. Rose, Havelock. Those are all really big football schools, and because of that, I'm going to take New Bern High School with the win.
I'm going to agree with you there again, and those are games that they've beat J.H. Rose. They didn't beat D.H. Conley, but again, they can compete, and I think New Bern High School's got it.
Let's get into some official Eastern Carolina Conference play for this next one. You have coming to this game with an overall record of 4-6, 2-4 in the ECC. The Green Central Rams taking on 7-3 overall, 4-1 in the ECC Washington Pan Pack. As we also mentioned, if Washington wins, they will be co-Eastern Carolina Conference champions with West Craven. Parker, who are you taking?
I'm going to have to give it to Washington here. Again, Green Central's had a good program this year. Unfortunately, it wasn't on the winning side, but with their past 3 games, like we talked about, getting blown out the past 3 games, I think Washington's just kind of going to go in there and not manhandle, but it'll be favored to Washington for that game.
And you got to give first-year head coach Jay Wilson credit. It's always tough to come into a new not a new program. He's been familiar with the program, but it's always tough to come in as a new head coach and get a winning program right off the bat. But honestly, this record could have been a lot worse. I think you got to give Green Central credit where credit's due for sticking together and really battling, because it has sort of been a rebuilding year. But I think with Washington coming off that loss to West Craven last week, they want to end the season on a high note, and just because of Green Central's struggles as of late, I'm taking Washington with the win.
Yeah, Green Central's got a good group of seniors, and again, we talked about it. This is his first year as a head coach, so it was a decent season to say the least.
You can call this game a cross-county rival game. You have, with an overall record of 6-4, 3-2 in the ECC, the Kinston Vikings traveling on the road to take on 7-2 overall, 3-2 in conference play, the Ayden-Grifton Chargers. This game's kind of a matchup like the one we had last week between Washington and West Craven.
Yeah, I have Kinston High winning this game. I think just what Kinston's been on, they've had a really strong last couple games, especially coming off that North Lenoir victory. I think this will be their game to really finish out the season strong and upset Ayden-Grifton.
I think I'm going to take Kinston High too, just because if we're being honest, there's been a lot of games that Kinston High should have won this season, but luck just did not fall in their favor and they did lose. I think they have found a lot of trust in Caleb Gooden, who's done a great job of coming in as a backup quarterback. I was almost saying starter quarterback, but Caleb Gooden, he was impressive in that game last week against North Lenoir, and I think as long as he can control the offense and honestly put the offense in his hands, or his feet, should I say, because he did a great job with rushing yards, I think Kinston High gets the victory, so I'm taking them. The big rivalry game, of course, that's also going to be taking place this Friday night. It's going to be our final game taking place on Friday night. You have coming to this game with an overall record of 2-7, 0-5 in East Carolina Conference play. The South Lenoir Blue Devils traveling across the river to take on their rivals, the North Lenoir Hawks, who come to this game with an overall record of 7-2, 2-3 in the East Carolina Conference. Parker, who do you have?
I got North Lenoir winning this, but then again, I think North Lenoir is kind of going to hand it to them a little bit. It's not going to be. I think it's going to be closer than we think. North Lenoir losing 3 out of their last 4 games, I believe. It's just North Lenoir is not on the best streak right now, finishing out conference play. But I do have North Lenoir winning that game.
And there's a lot going for North Lenoir in this game. If North Lenoir wins this, they'll tie their best record in program history once again with an overall record of 7-3. And I actually made a mistake. North Lenoir is coming to this game with an overall record of 7-3. If they do win this Friday night, they'll tie the program record for best season. And also, North Lenoir is trying to avenge a 46-14 loss that they suffered on the road last season to South Lenoir. So South Lenoir currently has the Pigskin Bowl, but it's like Jim Collins said, you've had 2 tough back-to-back weeks, and I'm certainly know that this is a game that they've had circled on their schedule for a while now. So I think North Lenoir is going to get the win, and they're going to show out big for this great group of seniors that have really rallied behind head coach Jim Collins in his second season and get the Pigskin Bowl trophy back on the north side of the river.
I agree.
And then, of course, we have our Neuse News Game of the Week presented by Nathan Perry Realty. That's going to be taking place this Saturday night. It is going to be Grace Christian of Raleigh traveling in with an overall record of 7-3, 5-2 in the Big 8 Conference, taking on Parrott Academy, who has an overall record of 7-3, 5-2. This is the NCISAA 2A state championship game. This is going to be Parrott's 5th state championship appearance in the last 6 years. And the last time these two teams played, it was back on October 4th, and Parrott won on the road by a final score of 51-36. And if Parrott wins this game, this will be their first state title since the 2016 season. And Parker, this is going to be a fun one. I'm very excited for this one.
I am too. I'm not really. I'm still in between. With Trey McLaughlin going down for Parrott, it's really a hard decision to make, and Grace Christian has such a versatile offense, like I mentioned before. I honestly think I'm going to give it to Parrott still, the hometown team. I'm going to give it to Parrott.
Well, you could say Parrott's back is against the wall without their star running back Trey McLaughlin, also their starting quarterback Reynolds Behringer, who went out early in the season, but they've done a great job of rallying behind true freshman Thomas Wilkes, who's done a great job taking control of this offense. And yeah, Parrott's going to have 3 big players out, but I think that's going to motivate that team enough to go out there at home in front of their home crowd, who was electrifying in that semifinal game this past Friday night. And I think Parrott's going to be able to come up with the win.
Yeah, I was about to say, just with the crowd being there and them already getting the win on the road against Grace Christian, I think Parrott's going to have. I think this will be Parrott's game to win.
And again, that is going to be our Neuse News Game of the Week taking place this Saturday night at 7 o'clock p.m. We want to thank Nathan Perry Realty for presenting that. And let's go ahead and thank our sponsors one last time as we close out the show. Lenoir Community College's quick job program provides training so you can get to work in less than 6 months. And because LCC partners with area employers, you can find not only a job, but a new lifelong career. Jobs currently in demand include heating, ventilation, air conditioning, electrical wiring, energy distribution systems, manufacturing, truck driving, training, and welding. Tuition assistance may be available as well as nationally recognized credentials. It's a new you and a new you. Let LCC empower you to get the job and career you've always hoped for. To learn about quick jobs, call 252-527-6223, extension 714, or enroll at lenoircc.edu/quickjobs.
The Neuse News Sports Show is also sponsored by KC Crop Insurance. They're here to serve all your crop insurance needs with over 50 years of combined experience. They take pride in excellent customer service. Give KC Crop Insurance a call at 252-522-9613. Again, that's 252-522-9613. And tell them Neuse News sent you.
Of course, if you have not subscribed to the Neuse newsletter, then you are missing out. It's free. It's in your inbox at 7 a.m. every morning. It's full of today's headlines and content. Go to neusenews.com to subscribe to the free Neuse newsletter. And then, of course, we want to thank our technical crew that's sitting behind the glass. We have Najee Cobb, our senior tech producer for today. We have Grayson Murphy, our junior tech producer. And then, of course, BJ Murphy, our Neuse News publisher. And again, don't forget our Neuse News Game of the Week, which is presented by Nathan Perry Realty, will be taking place this Saturday night at 7 o'clock p.m. between the Grace Christian Eagles of Raleigh and the Parrott Academy Patriots in the NCISAA 2A state championship game. Parker Mitchell and I will have the call. This has been our Neuse News weekly sports show. We want to thank you guys for tuning in and be sure to join us once again this Saturday night for our Neuse News Game of the Week. Good night, everybody.